Hi everyone. Today, Group 11 from Political Economy of International Business will be representing about how the US-China trade war affects Tesla. Our group members include David Samuel, Hani Pinkasari, Iriza Kamil, and Richard Sugiharto. And here is our group photo. In the first agenda, we are going to be covering on the US-China trade war, which will be explained by Hani and David. Next, the discussion of Tesla company and how it's impacted by the trade war will be presented by Richard and me. Now, I will pass it to Hani.
According to Oxford Dictionary, trade war is a condition where two or more countries intend to hurt each other's trade by imposing trade restrictions such as tariffs and quota restriction. So what are the root causes of the US-China trade war? In 2016 US presidential campaign, then candidate Donald Trump repeatedly blamed the US trade with China, along with the agreements that allowed it for the disadvantage in the manufacturing business and intellectual property in the United States. His campaign announced a plan or strategy to amend the US-China trade relation, promising to make a better agreement with China that its American employees and businesses compete. The US trade deficit rose to $375.6 billion in 2017, up from $103.1 billion in 2002 prior to trade war. Following the start of the trade war, the deficit rose to $378 billion in 2018 before slightly decreasing to $345.6 billion in 2019. In order to resolve structural considerations regarding China's economic regulations, Trump held a meeting with China's president only 3 months into his presidency, and the two parties got into an agreement to set up a 100-day action plan to address the trade differences. The following month, China concurred to slightly open its economy to the US services and enterprises, while on the other hand, China will gain expanded bilateral trade access and the US appreciation of China's Belt and Road initiatives. However, the continued negotiations stalled as Washington pressed Beijing for further concession, which Beijing turned down. The first conference of the US-China Comprehensive Economic Dialogue ended in July 2017 with no settlement, news conference, and joint statement. Trump then initiated the trade war to put emphasis on China to make substantial reforms of its economic structure that promote unfair Chinese trade operations, such as restricted market access, forced technology relocation, state-owned corporation subsidies, and theft of intellectual property. Trump asserted that unilateral tariffs would reduce the US trade deficit and encourage businesses to retrieve manufacturing jobs back to the US.
Now I'll be talking about the durability of the US-China trade war. For almost 3 years, there is still no sign of the US-China trade war to come to an end anytime soon. During these 3 years, we can divide this issue into 5 stages. On stage 1, both parties started to impose trade tariffs on each other, but the increase of the tariffs were still considered soft and reasonable. On stage 2, the trade war between the US and China started to elevate on this phase when the soft and reasonable increase in tariffs suddenly turned into a sharp and dramatic increase, where the US average tariffs escalated from 3.8% to 12%, and China's average tariffs escalated from just 7.2% to an extreme 18.3%. However, on stage 3, there were only minor changes in terms of tariffs on both parties. Moving on to stage 4, another wave of escalation kicked in. In the middle of June 2019, there was a sudden increase in both US and China's average tariffs, from the previous 12% to 17.6% of US and 18.3% to 20.7% of China's. Not only that, the second stage of increase in tariffs occurred in September 2019, where China's average tariffs went up for another 1.1% to the level of 21.8%, and the US average tariffs raised up by another 3.4%, bringing it to the level of 21%. On stage 5, which is the current stage, there are no significant changes in both countries' tariffs. In fact, this trade war between the US and China has become the new normal. Now I'm going to talk about the US-China trade war in present day. After going through a lot of stages since 2018, the issues remain unsolved. Even though the US presidency has changed from Trump to Biden, the Biden administration promised to examine the Phase 1 trade agreement but has not done so. In a recent event, China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi requested President Joe Biden to renegotiate the agreement to remove China's tariffs and sanctions. Biden signed an executive order to evaluate a few industries that were severely impacted by COVID-19 pandemic. These include pharmaceuticals, critical minerals in electronic, large-capacity electric vehicle batteries, and computer chips. The outcomes of the supply chain review could be used to facilitate negotiations with China about current supply chains. However, US trade officials have not confirmed that this would be used as a starting point to review the trade war's terms.
Moving on to the background of the Tesla Motor Company. In 2003, engineers named Martin Eberhard and Mark Teppening established the Tesla Motor Company in San Carlos, California. The well-known current CEO of Tesla, Elon Musk, only joined Tesla after investing a lot of money and becoming one of the board directors in 2004. Tesla company have a goal to reduce the world's reliability upon fossil fuels and shift towards zero-emission future. Nowadays, Tesla is known as one of the biggest manufacturer of electric vehicle. Tesla also have two production plants located in Fremont, California and Shanghai Gigafactory in China. From those two production plants, Tesla able to produce 499,500 cars throughout 2020. Furthermore, Elon Musk also stated that Tesla will always strive to increase the production of electric cars in the following years. Moving on to the effect of trade wars towards Tesla. Because of several parts such as computer and central display screens are imported from China, the US trade representative has to charge 25% tariff towards Tesla. Because of this condition, Tesla is forced to sue the Trump administration in order to avoid those tariffs imposed by the government. Tesla challenged the government by stating that higher costs of imports may hurt the company's financial position. The trade war also caused the US-made Tesla car price to be very expensive in China. For example, the US version of Model 3 Tesla will cost around 439,900 yen in China, while cost only around 241,900 yen in US. Due to the high tariff, Tesla opened Shanghai Gigafactory to produce its car locally and penetrate into the Chinese market. Although some parts are still imported from the US and only 30% of the parts are produced locally, the price of Model 3 cars significantly dropped to 339,050 yen.
After comprehending why Tesla should understand the US-China trade war, we offered some recommendations for the company. Tesla should get its component parts depending on the markets. For example, in the Chinese market, Tesla should source the component parts 100% locally to avoid further tariff imposition. This should be possible because China is already a main supplier of car components to US and European automakers. Hence, in the Chinese market, the opportunity for Tesla's vehicle to be 100% made in China is absolutely high. While in the US market, Tesla is highly dependent on Chinese-made components, including computers and central display screens. Due to high tariff on imports, Tesla should consider to outsource and import the component parts from the other countries like Indonesia, which has low labor costs. Indonesia is also the world's largest nickel producer, which is the main component to produce electrical vehicle batteries. Indonesia is not interested in just merely exporting nickel as raw materials. Rather, it wants to produce a nickel supply chain by extracting the nickels to transform it into chemicals and metals that can be used to produce batteries for EVs. Finally, this will benefit Tesla as the US imports tariff on other countries is only 3%, which is lower than 6.1% tariff on China's export. In conclusion, the US-China trade war has yet to be settled. The trade war has impacted Tesla's supply chain in both US and Chinese markets. The best solution for Tesla would be producing the component parts 100% locally in the Chinese markets, while importing outsourced parts from other countries including Indonesia in the US market. By understanding and being aware of the current political issue, not only Tesla can avoid the tariff, but it will generate more profit by having control of both markets. That will be all for our presentation. Thank you for your attention. Best regards, Group 11.